Away.
I wanted to ask you, you started as a jazz player, and we kind of think of that as an American music. Where did a kid in England get to listen to Thelonious Monk, other people like that?
Well, I'm from a place called Newcastle, and there's been a thriving jazz community there since what was called the trad boom in the 50s, where musicians played Dixieland. And it was like the hip thing to do for kids to play Dixieland in the early 50s. Like students, beatniks, whatever, would play Dixieland. And I ended up playing at the age of 15, 16 with guys who'd been playing since the 50s, who were much older than myself, guys in their late 40s, guys in their 50s, learning standards like Green Dolphin Street, playing upright bass. I was known as the kid at the time. They'd phone the kid up because I would do anything, play anything. And so rather than learning Led Zeppelin riffs, as most people my age were doing on guitar, I was learning how to play standards. And I was in a dance band, I was in a mainstream jazz group, I was in a sort of modern jazz group, a back cabaret.
There was no place on radio. Was there any place besides Newcastle? Because I was around London a lot at that time and never heard much jazz music.
There was a lot of jazz in Newcastle. Almost every pub had its own band.
You have obviously maintained some interest in the art form.
Not as something that is a religion with me. I like jazz. I think that it's obviously been very important in a lot of people's lives, including mine. But it's not what I do now. I don't play jazz. Even though I play with jazz musicians, we make music that I hope can't be labeled. And my whole point about music is that the labeling process limits it. It gives people prejudice when they should just be listening to music. If you call it a name first, then you introduce a prejudice. You introduce preconceptions about it. And my whole crusade at the moment is to try and thwart or confound the stereotypes. And part of the fun about being me at the moment is that I have records in the charts which shouldn't be there because they have things in them that aren't formula, that aren't programmable. For example, I have a single coming out this week called Englishman in New York, which has a jazz section in it, very much, and then it has a sort of hip-hop section. Now, the CHR format, I don't know how much you know about this, doesn't like jazz and they don't like hip-hop because it's against their formula. Because it's my record, they have to take it seriously. They have to either reject it or play it. And I find that very interesting.
Where do you also come up with the nerve to apply such intellect and intelligence to your music?
Well, I don't know about intellect or intelligence, but I know I have to be myself. And if being in rock music forces me to pretend I'm an idiot, or have to wear tight trousers or a wig or a corset, then I have to get another job. But at the moment, I can actually be myself, and people seem to accept it. It's just not nerve at all. It just feels very natural. As soon as it feels unnatural, I will get the hell out and do something else.
Did you get a chance to see Gil Evans in the last year at all?
Well, I actually sang with him on one of his last concerts last summer in Perugia in Italy. He arranged some of my songs, and we performed together at this big Italian festival. And he became, for me, a kind of father figure in a way. He was present on my last record. He was there, pointing things out, helping me out, giving me advice. And it's really a big loss to me, because he was the youngest 76-year-old man I'd ever met. I think kept alive by music.
I have a jazz label, Blue Note, and we have a number of his masters, and we're looking to put together a whole collection and donate some profits to something that was important to him. A brilliant musician. There was a time he played with you, or you played with him at Ronnie Scott's, do I understand?
I met him at Ronnie Scott's. Late one night, I went to see his band, and I plucked up the courage to go backstage and introduce myself. I said, I'm a rock singer, I'm called Sting. He says, yeah, I've heard of you. I couldn't believe he had. And then he confirmed it. He said, yeah, I like that song, Walking on the Moon. I like the bass line. And I was totally blown away by this guy, I'd admired since I was 15, knew one of my pieces, So then I said, well, I want you to help me make an album, And he said, sure. make me an offer. It didn't happen for another 2 years, but having made that connection, I then sang with them at Sweet Basil in New York, just impromptu one night, and we had a relationship, and I'd go and see him. And
I mean, what was the state of, as you recollect, the state of music in England in the late 70s when you guys got together?
Well, it was a lot of turmoil, basically. I mean, before that, we'd had the early 70s was Led Zeppelin and all of these mega bands of gothic rock and roll. A kind of music which I didn't really like, having been brought up in jazz. And I felt that I was kind of locked out. The doors were shut. You know, I went to every major record company with my tapes, my songs, and they all said, "Well, it's just not commercial." You know, and these songs were million sellers, 5 years on, the same songs. So I felt shut out, and that's what really made me feel a rapport with the punk movement. Although the music was a little shallow, the anger and the sense of wanting to revolutionize the music industry was something I felt very strongly for. So we flew that banner for a while. We were energetic and loud and noisy. And as the punk bands fell by the wayside because of, I don't know, various reasons, we were the ones that survived. So we came in through the door and put our own flag up. Now we're the establishment. You know?
Well, that happens in 2010.
So we're ready to be turned over now.
Turned to dinosaurs. I've talked to all those bands over this period, the Zeppelin and the Stones and the Who and the Beatles and so forth. At your time, in the late 70s, did a band get together and lay out a format for what they were going to be? Did the three of you ever do that?
I think as a fantasy, yeah. You sort of fantasize about having a #1 record or having a hit in America. And everything happened to us step by step. I didn't imagine we'd become mega as we did. And I'm not saying that out of any kind of big-headedness. We became a mega group, you know. But step by step. And I'm not sure we had a formula. Except we knew what we wouldn't do and we knew what we would do. We knew we didn't want to support anybody. We felt that we had to go out, even if we played to 4 people, it was better than supporting Foreigner and people throwing rocks at us. So we played it in places like Poughkeepsie at the Last Chance Saloon to 3 people. One of them was a DJ who played our record.
And the Roseanne's...
Sorry?
You found the cut in the album? Because that was that van trip, wasn't it?
That's it. It was a station wagon, actually, with the gear in the back, and we took turns driving, and we slept in one hotel room. And I came back after about 8 weeks on the road with $10 in my fist, which I gave to my wife. That's what broke us, basically. Bloody-mindedness.
Discouraging at all?
No, it wasn't. It was just... It was discouraging at the start when people would say, "You shouldn't do this. It's madness." You know, the record company would say, "What are you doing this for? No one does this." So, okay, that's a good reason for doing it. We didn't ask our record company for an advance, so we never had a kind of feudal relationship. You know, they never felt as if they owned us. We always had this partnership, which continues today.
And literally, Roxanne came out of that. Some disc jockey, a group of disc jockeys saw you.
It was an import, and it broke out of Austin, Texas. And then we played a little club in Austin, Texas, and then they started to play it.
Just as an aside, where did these unusual album titles come from?
From Miles Copeland.
Really? Is it one theme? Is it African? Where does it all come from? French?
I'm not sure what it came from. He just had this crazy idea of making up this kind of what's it called? Argot of his own. And we couldn't think of an album title anyway. You know, we were too busy writing songs. An album title was something we'd never thought of, and he came up with this thing, Outlandos d'Amour, which kind of, I don't know, it felt kind of right, as if it meant something. And then we carried on from there. We don't do that anymore.
Did success seriously impact this band at all in any negative way?
In a negative way. We were, you know, guys, and we were in our mid-20s, and we were kind of very strong personalities, and egotistical, and the whole rocket ship of success amplified all of those things. But in a way, it was very positive. It made us a very angry little group, and the music was very angular and tight and feisty. So in a way, that kind of pressure and that kind of negativity actually worked for a while, and then it became debilitating. After about 4 albums, it became something you would rather avoid. But that was work. You had to go into work and fight with the other guys, or do the other guys down or whatever. And so at first it was good. It gave us a personality. After a while it became just debilitating, and that's why I stopped it.
I'm sure you're aware that was not the first time that happened in a group.
No.
The creative process is so torturous. I know I had the Eagles and the various configurations of Fleetwood Mac, and it was just the thought of going back in the studio was just torturous to work together.
See, I'm trying to find out now if it's possible to make music without being in pain, without being unhappy or having some crisis. And I'm happy to say that at the moment I'm very happy. I have been for the last 2 years.
And in the last few years, you have emerged, willingly or unwillingly, as some sort of a sex symbol, as a great-looking guy up there. And I'm sure you've read all that and heard all that. Does that ever bother you at all?
It's not something I don't go to the mirror in the morning and go, God, what a great-looking guy you are and how bright you are. No, I don't. I've got Trudy to remind me that I'm not. But no, I can't let that affect me. Whatever's written about me, positive or negative, and some awful things are written about me as well as very flattering things. I know what I am. I know my value, and everybody else can only conjecture about it.
I mentioned before about intelligence and intellect. It's obvious that you make records that are not Whitesnake or something like that. Do you find audiences react? Do you have a different kind of audience?
I've always set out never to underestimate an audience, and I'm glad I did that, because a lot of people out there are cleverer than you are, I think. I think there's an intelligent audience out there that they do not want to be underestimated, patronized. No, I don't think making popular music and selling it on a mass level necessarily means you have to compromise, or necessarily means you have to play the lowest common denominator. I think popular music can be uplifting, it can be full of information, it can be cultured. It doesn't have to be crass. And I believe that. And if I believe my music isn't crass, I sell millions of records. So I want to carry on doing that. I think the Beatles did that. I think the Beatles played music that was culturally demanding, and I want to do it. That's what I'm here to do.
How is, as a film actor, is that a pleasurable one, or is that torturous?
It's less torturous, actually, because you're not ultimately responsible for what's on the screen. You may look as if you are, because you're the most famous, but you're famous. So people try and pin a movie on you, but it's a director's medium, it's a producer's medium, and the actor at best is a coat hanger. Even if you play a scene 2 ways, the way you want to play it and the way the director wants to play it, you know which version is going to be on the screen. So you can't intellectually be responsible for what's on the screen, even though you're asked to in interviews and the media. It's something that I get angry about, because I'm used to taking full responsibility for what I produce. But in films you can't. But then again, the pleasure of it is a bit like putting money on a racehorse. You're not sure what's going to happen. You can't tell what's going to happen. Whether you get praise or blame, you can't predict, and that's part of the fun. Actually, that's probably why I do it.
What are the difficulties, if any, for you to combine these careers?
It's quite easy. I'm not very good at resting or doing nothing. And so my father used to say, "Change is as good as a rest." I wish he'd taken my advice, but I find it relaxing to be in another work environment and go back to work. The problem is spending time with my family, so I like to work with my family around me, which is sometimes possible.
You are also one of those artists who are very socially conscious and active in other areas. Has that ever interfered with your music? I mean, do you get so involved in the cause that you find that you're political or whatever, you're social?
I think if you said yes to everything you were invited to support, you'd go crazy. You know? On a daily basis, you get at least 10 requests to save the lemmings or whatever. Which is why I try and focus my work on Amnesty International, who work to free political prisoners throughout the world, stop them being tortured, give them food. Because I feel by protecting these people, they're the very people who will affect positive change in the next generation. So it's a kind of blanket, it's an umbrella organization that I think will make a better future. And it's very focused on individuals rather than concerts for world peace. I never understand this concept. I don't know how a concert can make the world peaceful. It doesn't. People fool themselves. But Amnesty is very focused, and I will continue to support it through my songs and through my appearances and whenever I talk.
For those of us who've been around this business for a while, there was a lull between any kind of social activism, part of the music business, between the 60s and in the last couple of years. Do you feel out of the music community, or there is this ongoing commitment to do something?
I'm not sure whether there was a lull at all. I think that when you write music and when you write songs, it's a benign force that you're trying to get a hold of. It's something. When you write music, no matter what kind of person you are, you can be bad-tempered, mean, aggressive, but when you write music, something of God, for want of a better word, comes into you, and it's benign. So I think music has a social, political content, whether you want it to or not, as long as you're honest about it, as long as it's truthful. So I don't think there was a lull. I just think the media took less attention, maybe, or maybe the songs were less. Was less plain what people were talking about. You know, now in my songs, if I'm writing about an issue, it'll be fairly clear what I'm writing about. I don't couch it in poetic cloud.
How about working live? Does that give you a special kick? Or is it something you got to do?
It'd be hard to replace as a experience. You know, going out in front of 20,000 people every night, and singing and taking the risk of losing your voice. Very hard to replace. It's like being an athlete, you know.
On the edge.
It really is. And I don't know how I'd replace it. You can't. There's nothing like it.
The charge. Thank you very much.